Destiny 2 has seriously just been through a lot. It seems like every time I recommend the game to someone, a new expansion comes out and makes me look like a complete fool. I wanted to give my honest thoughts on the Lightfall expansion from a semi-veteran player's perspective, considering I barely came back to the game last year for Witch Queen, an expansion that I personally really liked and would rate up there with the Taken King. I've played all of the Destiny expansions. It's a game that I seriously despise at times, but I just find myself sucked in, grinding guns and armor rolls. I'm going to cover Lightfall in full now that I've beat it a couple times, and I'm in the endgame content. I'll also be going over whether Destiny 2 as a whole is worth getting into now that Lightfall is out. So before I get started, if you're a gamer who's sick of getting burned by corporations and their shitty games, consider subscribing to the channel. I've been playing games since the 90s, enjoying every style from shooters to RPGs. I play almost every new release, and I drop a full review just like this when I'm finished. I wanted to talk about story first because I think that's just a major factor in this expansion.
My witness. Progress. The veil is before us. It's still outside your grasp. My forces are locating it as we speak. The Neptunians won't pose much of a threat with their tawdry technology.
Destiny 2 has gone from really shitty storytelling to great, and now with Lightfall just back to shit again. Lightfall's story is arguably the weakest part of the game, which in most games would really set this one back dramatically. I'm going to go into some small spoilers about Witch Queen, an expansion I highly recommend, by the way. Check out my full review if you're interested. At the end of that campaign, you're introduced to this witness person, this Megamind Sith Lord character that's basically the ultimate big bad of Destiny 2. This guy's waging war on the Traveler, finds out that this is really important thing there called the Veil, and it's on Neptune. He orders Callus, who's back again, to go to Neptune and retrieve it. You basically start the campaign hyped to take on the witness, only to find out that instead you'll be hitting Neptune and defending this new cyberpunk-styled city called Neomuna from Callus, while also trying to get to this Veil thing first. Story starts out strong. I mean, I really like the first mission, especially that whole cool space portion. You feel this sense of doom and importance.
Look, down there. Callus's flagship. He's heading right for the surface.
Oh, is that you, my tenacious guardian? What do you think of my shadow legion? Revel.
But all of that's wiped away as soon as you land on Neptune. The city is okay. I mean, it looks cool at first, but it's really empty. The humans that are on the city are, too busy locked in their room playing VR to get out. I think that's a part of the lore. And I mean, the augmented new characters that they've added, these humans that are just like upgraded with metal, cyberpunk style, they're called Cloudstriders. And I mean, I think they're just boring and cringe. So, back to the city. I mean, while you're defending it, you're going to find this new darkness power called Strand. And the campaign really just turns into a training sequence for Strand. I mean, there's literally a sped up Rocky style training cutscene.
When we think about controlling something powerful, it's easy to assume it takes strength.
That boils down to really my biggest complaint in Lightfall. I feel like I spent $40 on a Strand tutorial, and the campaign just really didn't live up to any of the marketing hype that Bungie generated. I know this is a live service game and there's more story content, it's going to come out in more seasons, but it just makes me salty. I mean, I paid for Strand and an introduction basically. Strand starts out pretty fun, but is constantly just shoehorned into the campaign, making you almost dread just looking around for this light essence so that you can get Strand and be able to progress in the mission. It also feels 10 times better after the campaign when you unlock fragments and you're able to make it more powerful. Speaking of the fragments, Bungie actually released them early, and that was just to help increase the use rates because it just really wasn't competing with Arc or Void. People were really just reverting back to their old builds. You could beat like the 9 or 10 missions, I think it's 10 missions in the game really quickly. There's the beginning intro mission and the last mission, which I thought were the highlights of the actual expansion. I was able to personally beat the game in just a few days, and I've been working through the legendary campaign as of since. During the campaign, besides Strand, you're going to be running into the Cabal, who I think are Destiny's most boring villains. They've added these new tormentors though, who use this scythe and they attack you. These guys are pretty tough and actually pretty fun to fight, especially considering that they're the newest enemy that you're facing. The Cabal also dropped this darkness energy crystal thing, and you have to basically shoot it because it protects them. I personally didn't like that too much because, I mean, one, it dropped often. It almost felt like every other person I killed dropped one. It ends up breaking just the flow of the action. I mean, you go from shooting just mobs of enemies to having to shoot these little crystal shards that are just falling out. I talked about the story earlier, and I did say that it doesn't set the game back as much. So to better explain what I mean, I have to talk about the gameplay loop in Destiny 2. This is a game, again, I keep coming back to, and I keep coming back to it for the actual gameplay. For anyone that's new to the series, Destiny 2 is a looter shooter with space magic. You get random drops with rolls on guns when you do public events, lost sectors, missions, strikes, and even PvP. The goal once the story is complete is to just get overpowered as fuck and make your Guardian just look badass. If you're looking for a challenge, you've got Nightfall strikes, legendary lost sectors, and you even have raids that have unique and powerful drops, which honestly make your character even more overpowered and cool looking. The gameplay in the game is really just the biggest highlight. Guns all feel pretty unique, especially when you get the new exotics. Exotic guns and exotic armor really just make a huge difference. The armor pieces look awesome, and they can be customized with mods to make your build even more powerful. Speaking of those mods, Destiny 2 finally added a loadout system with Lightfall, making building out your Strand, Flame, or Arc build super easy and a lot less tedious. They even reworked the mods, unlocking all of them for use. You don't have to wait for this vendor to have a specific mod, and if you don't log in that day, you're screwed. You're not going to see it again for 3 months. Now they're there for everyone. Those quality of life changes for new and old players, I think, are personally huge, because they really just make the game a lot more accessible and fun. You get 3 classes, Hunter, Titan, and Warlock, and I think they all feel so different and just add even more replayability, if that's even a word, to the game. I have 3 characters, for example, and I mean, once I level up one, it's just super easy to transfer some of your gear to the other character and level the rest. This time around, I did main the Hunter, but I'm planning a Titan playthrough next to get those Wolverine Strand gauntlets. Within the 3 classes, you're going to be getting 5 subclasses. 3 if you don't buy any of the DLC, Flame, Arc, which is electric, Stasis, which has freezing capabilities, and Void, which has this awesome Shadow class, and now they've got Strand. Again, gameplay is seriously the best part of Destiny 2. And I think finishing the story is just the beginning of your journey in the game. There's just so many missions, there's so much raids, strikes, and post-game content for you to complete, and even more if you get the Battle Pass, which came with the Lightfall copy. They've made some tweaks to the strikes. I don't think it's anything major, but they have, added just some different things that veterans are going to notice. For anyone new and returning, they've tweaked crafting, it's back, and it's even easier this time around. You're not going to have to grind out, red bar guns. You're constantly getting legendary drops, as well as exotics, and it just really helps you feel like you're always progressing in the game and you're not really stuck at a wall. The weeklies are still there. You got to finish those if you're grinding light levels, and they've gotten rid of shaders disappearing after you use them, so feel free to customize your gun and your character as much as you want. I know I talked about Strand being the main point of the story, but once you actually finish the story, Strand becomes so much more fun. The Hunter Strand has this dodge that suspends enemies, you get a grapple, and I think at first it takes a little while to get used to. I'm going to admit I did miss having a grenade, but after finding a flow where I'm grappling, then meleeing, then suspending, it really helps take down crowds while I'm running my Hunter build. Strand seriously seems a lot more viable, but I mean, it's a huge negative that you have to grind these meditations to get aspects. Once you beat the game, you unlock Strand to use completely at any time, but you don't have any of these aspects that basically buff up your Strand abilities. You can get these by completing the campaign and through Nimbus bounties, but other than that, you have to kill enemies with Strand to get a meditation, and the fragments are expensive. I mean, they cost 200 meditations, so you gotta kill 200 enemies with the melee or the grapple or even your super. Did I mention how cringe the new characters are? As the world is collapsing around them, and their planet is just under attack, Nimbus is there to crack these weird jokes and basically pull you out of any seriousness of the story every time that they're on screen. I think Nimbus is honestly just the Jar Jar Binks of Lightfall. I know I'm coming into this a new and renewed Destiny fan from Witch Queen, but I did want to mention the things that I didn't like in the expansion. Personally, I didn't like how short the campaign was, and how it became just a complete side mission dealing with Callus, who personally is just a boring enemy, instead of seeing more of the Witness who they hyped up after you finish Witch Queen. I don't care if there's more seasons, I think the expansion should feel like an expansion, not a tease. I think the Cabal fighting and the shield drop was annoying, as I said before. The amount of new exotics and armors added to the game are a shame, considering how much they hyped up the marketing and all of the new city and just how cool it looked. Difficult content's harder this time around, and it really just makes those bullet sponge enemies feel even worse. I don't know why they made it harder. I don't think it was too easy before, but it's a weird decision. I feel like the lost sectors and nightfalls need to be just tuned down a little bit, considering how high you have to get your light up to even play them. I was concerned about Strand at first, and I really thought it was underpowered and I thought it would be useless, but once you beat the game, it's a lot more fun and really a worthwhile addition to the new subclass. They didn't add any PvP maps, no new Gambit maps, and like I said, Neomuna looks a lot cooler in the trailers than it did when you finally get the game. It feels empty and really just feels unfinished. Strand also, by the way, just looks like it should have belonged in Witch Queen. I don't know if it's the color palette, but it's just a little weird that it's just here. I know the game has been a roller coaster for just so many people. Sunsetting the content was just a huge issue for a lot of players because it basically axed what you paid for. I think Destiny 2 though as a whole isn't a bad game at all. To me, out of all those failed live service games, there's a reason that this one has such a huge player count. The game itself is fun, addicting, and really rewarding. You don't ever feel like you're wasting time, whether you're alone or you're playing with friends. Lightfall hasn't gotten the best reception from fans, because fans rightfully demand more after Bungie set the bar so high with Witch Queen. I personally feel like the expansion had huge potential for fans and new players, but the game just made some serious missteps with the story. The worst part of the game is literally the campaign. Dealing with Callus again is getting just so old at this point. If we set the campaign aside, with the amount of content you get, quality of life changes, the awesome new subclass, and all the post-campaign content that's even better than the actual campaign, Lightfall really starts to shine. I just think it's a shame that we have to pay up to learn more about the story season after season, and as much as a fan that I am, I can't dedicate the time to play this game every season, and will most likely just miss a few. This one really took a while, but I just had to get all my thoughts out there on this expansion, because I think there's just a lot of blowback right now that's just overplayed. If I had to score it, Lightfall to me is a 7 out of 10. I don't think it's a terrible expansion, but it's good enough in my opinion to play. If you're new to Destiny, would this be the expansion that I recommend you get? Not really. Witch Queen is better by miles, unless you want access to the new Strand subclass. If you're considering coming back, I honestly believe that the state of the game has gotten so much better and is constantly improving to where you should buy this game. It's a $40 expansion with a ton of content, especially considering that the rest of Destiny 2 is free. You'll definitely get your money's worth in content either way, and if you like looter shooters, Destiny 2 is the pinnacle of what all these other failed live service games like Marvel's Avengers want to achieve. So that's it for Destiny 2. We'll be dropping some more thoughts on different seasons as they come out. If you made it this far and you liked the video, drop a like and then hit subscribe to not miss another video. Help us fight off this YouTube algorithm. I appreciate all the support, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks.